Hello there, my name's Quentin Sumner. I'm going to share a little bit from the Bible on a piece called Shooting Stars and Comets and the Return of Jesus Christ, the Second Coming of Jesus Christ. So we look in some interesting verses of the Bible, and we'll do a little series of it, of what is coming up as the return of the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ as he returns. So read a few bits and pieces of quite interesting pieces about stars or shooting stars, falling stars and comets. So it's quite interesting pieces that come. Says in Joel 2:30, I will wonders in the sky above, and on earth below there will be blood and fire and clouds of smoke. The sun will turn dark and the moon will be as red as blood, but before that great and terrible day when I appear. So clearly here it's saying that there's things, wonders in the sky, and that will be a falling from the stars of the sky. In Matthew 24:29, interesting verse here that's clearly states in here, 24:29, right after, this is really saying when the Son of a Man appears. There's quite a lot in the verse Matthew 24, sort of the temple will be destroyed, warning about trouble and the horrible things right through. But in verse 29, when the Son of Man appears, right after these days of suffering, because that is really the one of the keys of this whole verse, right after those days of suffering, the sun will become dark, yes, and the moon will no longer shine. The stars will fall. Again, I say this, the stars will fall, and the powers in the sky will be shaken. And then verse 30, interesting, then the sign will appear in the sky. So that's interesting. And there will be the Son of Man. So that's clearly saying that the signs of stars that are actually falling are really clearly saying that the return of the Lord Jesus Christ is coming. I mean, if you go back, probably going back to Dr. Edmund Halley, when he the Halley's Comet, if you go back 300-400 years of that piece of, there has been shooting stars. And I think one of the interesting things that, as I will put together in this little series, that in November 13th, 1833, that there were billions of falling stars, shooting stars coming down from heaven on that day. A lot was seen in North America and in Europe, but especially in North America on that particular time. That was actually seen on November 13th, 1833. I'll show you just a few little bits and clips of what it could have looked like. As you can see, just a little bit, not too good, but the colour of shooting stars of a coloured picture. The church in North America, you can see the little star shooting. This is out in North America, little bits and pieces of the stars that are shooting, coming down from heaven. And of course a lot of people at that particular time saw the coming of the Lord. You saw the Seventh-day Adventist movement, the Millerites, the Seventh-day Adventist movement, saying this was the coming of the Lord. And in verse, as I said, in Mark chapter 13:25, he says in these, well, starts in 24, in those days, right after the time of suffering, the sun will become dark, and the moon will no longer shine, the stars will fall, and the powers in heaven it will be shaken. Then the Son of Man will be seen coming in the clouds with great power and glory. He will send his angels to gather his chosen one from all over the earth. So it's clearly saying, even in Acts 19:33, images fell from heaven. I believe the stars fell from heaven. It's clearly saying that there is a great, even in Joshua 10:11, the Lord hurled large hailstones, I believe, down from the sky. This was on the Israelites, and it's clearly saying that falling stars over the last 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years has been clearly seen as a sign of also sort of judgment, but of a certain coming. Now, if you see in certain part, as I said, these little clips of billions of shooting stars in 1833, it certainly was a time of, as I said, the movements that came afterwards, saying it was the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ coming forward. It was certainly seen recently. I was told by a German man in Germany alone, in August there were 60 shooting stars that were seen in that period of time. He came out to Christchurch and he saw a shooting star. So it's in Christchurch, South Island, New Zealand. So also a German girl was saying to me she saw 5 shooting stars. It's clearly that these stars are becoming more and more as we've got more technology now to see them. But clearly, if we look at Revelation, and it's clearly 6 verse 12, clearly it says quite clearly in verse 6 and 12, 13. Then I saw the Lord open the 6th seal. I looked and saw a great earthquake, and we've had many earthquakes in Christchurch in the last 5.5 years, 10,000. The sun turned as dark as sackcloth, and the moon became as red as blood. Over the last year or so, couple of years, we've seen 5 red moons. The stars in the sky, as it says in verse 13, the stars in the sky fell to earth just like figs shaken loose by a windstorm. As I saw little pictures in 1833, on November the 13th, 1833, billions of stars fell. I believe those days we'll see again, and we'll see all the signs and wonders around it. We'll talk a bit later on that. The stars in the sky fell to earth just like figs shaken and loosened by a windstorm. Then the sky was rolled up like a scroll, and all mountains and islands were moved from their places. There's so much in that sort of verse. If we go even further, a little bit more, in 15, the kings of the earth, its famous people and its military leaders hid in the caves or behind the rocks of the mountain. They hid there together with the rich and the powerful and all the slaves and free people. Then they shouted to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, hide us from the ones who sits on the throne and from the anger of the Lamb. The terrible day has come. God and the Lamb will show their anger, and who can face it? Well, it's really saying quite clearly the signs are coming in these days, that shooting stars and comets, in the next series of some very interesting little bits and pieces, that, as it says in Acts 19:33, images fell from heaven, and I believe the stars. I believe the return of Jesus Christ is returning very quickly and very clearly to people, in visions, in signs, and in wonders, and also in miracles, that we are going to see so many things in the skies in the next few years, or whatever it is, that we'll see great things in the stars, that they shall fall from heaven. And I'll continue a little bit more in part 2.